Morning, church. My name is Baron Brock, and I'm going to be doing the morning devotional with you guys. We're going to be in Luke chapter 2, starting in verse 1. So let's go ahead and jump in. And it came to pass in those days that a decree went out from Caesar Augustus that all the world should be registered. The census first took place while Quirinius was governing Syria. So all went to be registered, everyone to his own city. So Luke, the author of this gospel, he decides to provide us with some historical details in these opening verses. He wants to show that what he's talking about is credible. He mentions Caesar Augustus. We might better know him as Octavian. He's one of the first Roman emperors that ever kind of comes along and changes that structure for the Romans. He also mentions this guy Quirinius. Sometimes his name is translated as Cyrenus, and he was the legate governor of Syria after Herod Archelaus, Herod the Great's son, was banished from being the tetrarch. And Josephus, another extra biblical source, also actually mentions this guy and him being governor. So we see that Luke provides some factual details. We can know that this account is true, and we can see this even just looking in history. And Luke continues on saying, Joseph also went up from Galilee, out of the city of Nazareth, into Judea, to the city of David, which is called Bethlehem, because he was of the house and lineage of David, to be married or registered with Mary, his betrothed wife, who was with child. And so Joseph goes on this journey from Galilee in the city of Nazareth that he lives in all the way to Bethlehem. He brings Mary with him, and she's pregnant at the time, and he goes to register for a census. And Luke continues saying, so it was that while they were there, the days were completed for her, that being Mary, to be delivered, so to give birth. And she brought forth her firstborn son, capital S there, it says Jesus, and wrapped him in swaddling cloths and laid him in a manger, because there was no room for them in the inn. And so Luke, a little different than Matthew, is pretty short and sweet when it comes to Jesus' birth. He says they go to Bethlehem, Mary gives birth, they can't even give birth in a house. All the inns, all the places for them to stay are full. And so most likely they give birth out back in a cave or a barn or something like that where they would keep the animals. And Jesus is basically just laid in a manger, effectively a feeding trough, and that's where he's placed. And for some of us, this Christmas season, we kind of may be in a season of lack. And I kind of see a similar thing with Jesus here. Maybe we're lacking money or gifts. Work's been rough. Paychecks have been a little less. Times are tight, right? You're doing your best, but maybe it just feels like you're coming up a little short. Maybe you're lacking a family member. Maybe a parent passed away this year, and you can fill the void that they've left now that they're not a part of your life and they're not going to be around this Christmas season anymore. Maybe even the both joyful yet sorrowful state where maybe a child or a daughter or son has grown up. They're hanging out with their spouse's family this year for Christmas, or they're off at college hanging out with their friends, and they're not going to be around this year like they have been in years past. And I want to bring out that Jesus understands the season of lack that you may be going through this year, this Christmas. And we see that in a very practical way, in that Jesus said when he's born, he lacks wealth, right? He's just born in a barn out back, effectively, and placed in a feeding trough. Nothing special about his birth. Jesus also lacks respect when it comes to his birth. In John 8 and Mark 6, the people mention and kind of make passive references to Jesus not being a legitimate son, not being Joseph's son, being the son of Mary, being born out of wedlock, and people judge him for that later on in his life. Jesus also eventually lacks his family for a period of time. Eventually his family tries to come to him and say, what you're doing is crazy, you need to stop. And he effectively says, who does the work of my father is who my family is. And ultimately, even those closest to Jesus would betray him. The 11 disciples run and leave him behind, and Judas is the one who actually turns him over to the religious leaders to be killed. And so even in Jesus' birth, and especially throughout his life, he experiences seasons of lack. losing family, not having material wealth, and emotional hurt and pain, and all of the things that he goes through that we may be finding ourselves going through this Christmas season. So that's really the hope that I want to offer you this morning, is that run to Jesus, throw your burdens and your cares on him. He knows what you're going through this Christmas season, whatever challenge you're facing, whatever hurt in your heart you're carrying. Christ knows it. He's been through it. He's experienced it. And there's such great hope and joy when we can simply give those things over to him. He's been through them, and he is the great and mighty comforter. That's the hope I have for you guys this morning. I hope that encourages you, and I hope you would take that to heart.